Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for June 4th, 2019. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time, if Bob Tinneberry could open us up in prayer.
Shall we pray? Father God, we thank you for the privilege of living in a country where we are able to choose our leaders, choose people to make decisions for us. Father, we pray that tonight that you would give them wisdom, that you would give them courage, that you would just give them the ability to decide things before them. Father, we also pray for those who have accepted the challenge of joining or coming on board, a library board and other boards, fathers, and commissions. We need people to represent us in these areas. Father, we're thankful that you are a God that we can call on, and we now pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Okay. At this time, we're going to request for approval of the 2019-2020 general fund budget. I look for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Okay, at this time, if you'd like to speak on the general fund budget, now would be the time to do so. Okay, seeing none, I look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion. Second.
Okay, motion supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
This is just to close the hearing. We're still going to have discussion. Yes. Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passes to close at 7-0. Mr. Manning, if you'd like to come on up.
Good evening. This upcoming fiscal year's budget is pretty much a copy of last year's. Few exceptions. We're going to be purchasing 3 police vehicles. That's $120,000. The roads fund has increased by $200,000. And we will not be funding the library. Outside of that, staff salaries went up, fringe benefits went up. And on fringe benefits, we got a notice from Delta Dental that our rates will be going down 1.6%. So I want to thank everybody for all the hard work that they put into the meeting during the meeting of the holes. So.
Any questions for Mr. Manning or?
Yeah.
Mr. Montroy?
We had discussed in the budget meetings, like earmarking money for capital improvement plan, like for the building and grounds and whatnot. I just didn't know, like, is that somewhere in the budget that we can?
No, you can't budget for that.
You can't?
You cannot budget for that. We're going to have to do a resolution to set up funds in the fund balance area for that. So we'll take money from any excess revenue over expenses and put it towards building and vehicles. It's not a budget item that can go into the budget. We're not going to be spending the money. You're going to be setting the money aside, and therein lies the difference.
So if we need to do a resolution, then we need to,
Yes.
okay, so can we do that next meeting? Trudy?
Yeah.
Okay?
Dave can get it together and we know how much to put in there.
Okay, you done?
With, I mean, I guess, like, I just thought that that was discussed in the, like, in the actual budget meeting. I didn't know that that was something that had to be a completely separate thing.
Ms. Tinneberry?
My understanding is that this board has to develop a resolution for a capital improvement plan. And then the capital improvement plan has to outline what it is that will be going into the capital improvement plan, or what is set aside for, and then you can put money into that each year. It's not, I mean, it definitely isn't something that is in this budget and can't be done out of here. But when a capital improvement plan is presented, it's presented for the purpose of future spending in a specific area, and you set aside money out of each budget. Maybe it is out of the general, or out of the fund balance, but it is a specific capital improvement plan that is in your budget.
You're right, but you cannot, it will not be a budgetary item.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I thought you meant, but I wasn't hearing
Oh,
it
okay.
being said that way, but I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
it's something the board has to establish and isn't just appropriated when you do the budget unless you have this capital improvement plan. And we've been saying for years, we should have a capital improvement plan for, I mean, even like the parking lot and things like that that we're thinking of doing, so.
Did you like,
That's my understanding,
did you like that new sewer out there?
yeah.
It's nice, huh? Craig?
I don't know what the rest of the board, I'm just like curious what the rest of the board, if everyone else is okay with that. I just felt like that was discussed and kind of agreed upon in the budget meetings. So I
This is the
expected to
first
see
that I've
that.
heard that we're
Okay.
gonna have to do a resolution, so we'll make it happen next meeting.
So I guess the difference is with like for the police vehicles, that is because that's capital outlay as newly acquired capital, that's why it's budgetable as opposed to improvements on current capital?
Correct.
Okay.
It's already a fund in the budget. In the general fund budget, we already have a police fund, so that can be a capital outlay out of that budget.
Right.
Okay.
Capital improvement fund is different in terms, like I said, you have to designate in your plan what you're going to be using that for. You can't just keep putting money away and then say, okay, let's use it for this. You have to
Okay.
have it designated.
The only other thing I had was on page 11 and 12. I think it's just like a typo error, but there is so on page 11, the pension is 9462, which is the same as the line item for FICA. And like in the budget packet, that was 13,880, which I'm assuming is different even, like that would have went up with salary increase. So I'm assuming that those are just, because those are the same numbers, I'm assuming it just was a, like entry error, but, because our budget meeting approval for the total expense in Treasury Department was $211,900, and that's, we have in here 209,000. So I'm assuming with unless pension, I don't know if there was something that I didn't know about that like pension would have went down, but I thought like for the rest of the positions, like pension went up as well.
The pension in the Treasury, some of the Treasury salaries are dispersed to other activities, to the sewer fund, okay? And the pension dollars go with those salaries. So therefore, that's why the pension is at,
So it did go
9,000.
down,
yes,
and then that's just
yes,
just a coincidence that they're the same?
right.
I don't know if I completely understand that.
Okay.
That the pension is, so the pension is dispersed? Does that make sense? That it's dispersed? All right,
Only in the categories where there are employees that work both in the sewer and in the Treasury Department and in finance or whatever.
Right.
So their pension goes with them, with their salary in that particular area,
Okay.
how much the pension would be for that salary.
So for example, my salary is split between finance, building inspections, and sewer. And all the benefits follow that.
Because this is like, I mean,
And
that's
in
a
the-
$4,000 decrease in the pension from
Right.
the budget,
Right.
like from the budget meeting.
And the
Just-
treasurer's department,
Do you know?
I think that's a typo.
That's what I think. I just feel like it's a typo. Correct?
I think it is. I didn't see it till right now, and I'm embarrassed by that, but I think that has to be a typo, because salaries have gone up, and it should be a percentage of the salaries that are on that page.
Mm-hmm. So it would have
If you
went
look
up,
in the
not
sewer fund,
down
which is in-
$4,000.
Pardon?
So it would have went up, not down $4,000.
I don't know if it had gone up 4,000.
No, but it went down
It would be,
4,000.
it would be closer to what the current year's one is.
3,400.
Right. The original budget number would be more reflective of the right number,
Mhm.
not this one.
It would have to be higher than that, because salaries went up a little bit.
Mhm. That's why it didn't make sense, and I just, like, that's what I said. It just seems like it was a typo, but I wanted to verify if it was something along
Just double-
with
double-
those lines.
I'll take a look at it
double
and let
check
you
it.
know.
Okay.
Anybody else have any more questions, Ms. Tenenberry?
I don't really have questions, but I thought there would be a lot more people here tonight because I received communication from people. But anyway, nonetheless, I'm their representative, so I'm going to be speaking. I guess I want to clarify this. This board had several budget workshops. I attended the first couple, and then I stopped attending because my opinion is not shared by most of this board. I expect some backlash from my comments tonight, but I hope the backlash is not cruel, because I have a different opinion. I have a different method of how I would like to see the budget formulated, and this comment from Craig is one of the reasons, because when you divide things up into all these different funds, then the budget, in my opinion, becomes non-transparent. It's not transparent. I don't know, based on this budget, how much David makes, because David's salary is divided into several different funds, and the same way with other people in the Treasurer's Department, and it's just scattered in my mind, and I don't think it has to be that way. And, you know, I'm not saying this is illegal. It's not a bit illegal. It's completely within the bounds of the chart of accounts and the budgeting that's permitted in governmental accounting, but I think it's not as transparent as it could be to the public. That's one comment, and that's because I stopped going to the budget workshops, I did not have as much input, but when I was there, the input that I was giving wasn't, and I'm not crying, I'm not complaining, I'm saying that people didn't share my opinion, so it didn't make sense for me to go and continue to argue week after week. The other thing that I object to in this budget is the taxes, the property taxes that come in for Bedford Township in this budget is $1,039,000. We're spending $750,000 out of the general fund budget for police alone. That's more than half of what we get in total property taxes for the year. I just think that is not how I would like to see things budgeted. I am a person who is interested in having services for the public. That's what I took an oath to uphold, and that's what I believe firmly in my heart and conscience I should be doing. We've reduced community action, which is services for the public. We have no mosquito control. This is supposed to be one of the worst years for mosquitoes and ticks in many, many years. And I know that we can't afford to go back to what we did before, but certainly we could spray the parks or something that would help reduce the mosquito proliferation in our township. My point is, I will be voting against this budget for several reasons, just a few of what I have mentioned. Getting back to the police budget, not only are we spending $750,000 out of the general fund, but there's nearly $450,000 that we take in that on a millage that the people have approved. And so you can do the math. It's over $1 million, 750 and 400. What is that? Almost.
1.1 roughly.
No, it's more than one.
1.1.
But anyway, okay, it's over $1 million for services that we don't have any control over. It's hard for me to swallow that. So I just would like the minutes to reflect that I'm voting no, because I don't believe that the method of that we use in budgeting is transparent, and I believe that we spend insufficient dollars on services for the public.
Quick question to your comment. What community action, you said, what has been taken away other than the mosquito spray, which has been, what, 15 years ago that was stopped?
There's a community action, mosquito spray is separate.
But that's been a long time with the mosquito spray.
I know, but this year's different. We could have budgeted for mosquitoes, some kind of mosquito control in the parks.
Yeah.
I
was just saying besides that. Just besides the mosquitoes, I wasn't sure what you were referring to.
That's what I was referring to. Do you know what number is the community action?
Page 35
Not off the top of my head, no.
is what she's referring to. Page 35.
I guess as long as you, community action, page 35. Yeah, it's reduced from 40,000 down to 37.5. I mean, everything else is raised, community action is reduced. Speaking of that, why the Beautification Committee is in this budget, and we all know that it has been dissolved. So why is there money in the Beautification Committee budget?
At the time this budget was put together, the Beautification Committee was still a viable committee. Is now, was the Green Works Committee? Is that what it is now?
I don't know what it's called, green something,
Yeah.
the Green New Deal, maybe? No, maybe, someone said that wasn't it, but.
I hope not.
Actually, only
The name was changed in effect. We always talked about in effect, transfer the budget from that name, from beautification to the new name. We weren't going to eliminate the funding for it.
Oh, I thought it
So
was.
this
eliminated.
account ought to be changed to that new name.
We did
Okay.
talk about that.
Yeah.
Change
Well,
the name.
what was it, what'd you say, Trudy?
community action, the only thing I see that was removed was postage.
Reduced.
Right. By postage, that's it.
Wait, 35 was it?
Right.
Okay, I'm not
Leave
sure.
promotion was reduced.
I'm not, my point is that why didn't it stay at 40,000? Why is it reduced? Okay, postage,
Postage, that's it.
but we could have moved the postage into something else like community promotions. See what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Instead of reducing it, we could have increased something else. I just like to see more community stuff, and nearly everyone else's, let's see, I figured it out. There were 18 increased budgets and 11 decreased budgets. And so, and yet the funding is up $100,000. The revenues are up $100,000. So I'm just, I know I don't have agreement on this board, but I am a voice for some people because they get in touch with me, and I believe that I need to fulfill that responsibility that I took an oath to do, and so I'm being that voice. I'm not asking for, you can disagree with me, I'm all open to disagreement, but I would just hope that it wouldn't be cruel.
Is there anybody calling you other than Bob?
No. My son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, no. You said, David, you said that we're no longer financing the library, but I want to just clarify that the library is being funded through
Yes.
now a millage.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
The general fund is no longer
Any more,
financing the library.
any more further questions? Seeing none, I look for a motion. Mr. Francis, you have
Just
a
a
comment?
comment. I'm confused by Nancy's comment that it's not transparent, because several times at these workshops, schedules were presented that showed the compensation, wages plus fringes for every staff member.
Correct.
It's not part of this budget because it probably legally can't be part of this document, but it's a backup for those schedules, so it does
Right.
show exactly to the penny
Yes,
by person.
correct.
And I don't know how more transparent you can be than that.
Well, I would say that we're probably the most transparent in the whole county, seeing that we put them on, all on Facebook Live for everybody to watch them too. Ms. Tenderbrick?
My comment about transparency was just what Craig was saying. A person, just an average person in the public cannot look at this. I agree, I in no way implying that there's anything mishandled, misdone, any shenanigans. I'm not implying that. I'm saying that to look and see, and I'm just going to use David for an example, what the finance director is paid, a normal, average person would not be able to look at that and see. That's the transparency I'm talking about, that things are moved around to look and see how much they spend on paper. It's not, you can't look and see how much they spend on paper. You can't. My point is the way the budgeting is broken up into all these different categories.
Hey,
It's
Dave-
difficult to find, and Craig even just mentioned that.
Dave, did you ever look into anything further when Mr. Steiner did that nice presentation? And, I mean, is that something that we can look a little deeper into?
We can do a source on it, yes.
And I was gonna bring that up and
I
just
mean,
say,
it was-
and I say, a couple meetings back, Mr. Track came up and made the comment about that presentation, and it worked very well. And granted, somebody would have to put the data in there and manipulate it into a pivot table, but once you learn it, which it's not that difficult to learn, you drop your numbers in, and then you can just click, click, click a couple times, and David's salary, you can look up, here's all David's total numbers, or here's all the office supplies, and here's all of, anything that's coded a certain way, by number, it will all populate with a couple clicks of your mouse. And when I say a couple, I'm saying literally maybe 2 or 3 clicks, and you can get all of it to come together. Again, I'm not here every day, so I can't sit here and do it every day, but if anybody here, David or anybody, Trudy's department or somebody that wants to take that on, I will show you how to use or create the pivot table. Once it's created, all you do is have to put your data in there, and it can be found. Now, the only thing I will say is, again, that's in an Excel file, so the only way that if somebody from the public would want to see it, they would have to come ask you specifically what they're looking for. Somebody would have to do those clicks in the Excel file, then print that page out. That could be done. But other than that, it's not going to just take everything and put it all in. You're still going to end up with, 25, 30-some pages. But you can narrow it down to a one-pager with a couple clicks of the mouse.
Well, you do the same thing in Excel with sorts.
Well, it is Excel,
Yeah.
but this
Right.
is probably cleaner than trying to start
Oh.
doing a bunch of sorting and everything through Excel, whereas this way it
Okay.
puts it up. In fact, you can run a graph off of it. Somebody wants to see it in a graph form, you can just generate the graph.
Right.
Anytime you make those clicks, changes, it'll change your graph. So that's there too.
All right, well, I look for a motion.
One more comment. It was mentioned that the roads budget was increased by a couple $100,000. That's true. What the issue is the budget for the current year for roads is $1,385,000. We're gonna underspend that by about $400,000. So that amount that we didn't spend would go back into the fund balance. And when we increase the budget for this coming year that we're talking about right now by a couple $100,000, it takes 200 of that 400 out and spends it, or budgets it. The reason it didn't get spent is because weather-related issues where the contractors could not get the work done. When we contract for that, we assume it's going to be done in the construction period, which really, June 30th kind of splits that. So it'll just be carried over. So we're really not spending $400 or $200,000 more than we thought we were. We just didn't spend it last year, and we're rolling it into this coming year. I don't know if that helps or hinders understanding that.
I believe I mentioned the budget went up.
Mhm.
I wasn't comparing
I know,
actual costs, I was comparing budget numbers.
I know.
Okay, just want to make that clear.
Any more comments or questions? Okay, I look for a motion.
Can we make
If I
a
can
motion
properly
with
work-
this number, with that number being, like, how are you gonna make a motion with the,
You make the motion tonight as it is, and when you get the correct number, you amend the budget for that number. So if we adopt it as it's printed,
okay,
and then in a couple of weeks, we get the right number in that one account,
okay,
you make a
Then you
budget
make the
adjustment for just that difference
okay,
and approve it number good.
okay.
So I guess
Good catch.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the general fund appropriation resolution for fiscal year 2019, 2020 as presented.
Support.
Motion and supported by Mr. Clements. Discussion? Mr. Steiner?
Just a quick friendly amendment, I would say just to add that footnote that that number does need to be changed and brought back to us.
I don't think it's necessary to make that, but I don't know
I'll
if that's
just,
what you want.
that way we make sure it's followed up on.
You okay with that, Mr. Clements?
Absolutely.
Okay. Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clements?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
No,
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 6-1. Item B, request for approval of the 2019-2020 special funds budget. I look for a motion to open the public hearing.
Make a motion.
Second?
Okay, motion and supported by Mr. Steiner. At this time, if you'd like to come on up and,
Roll.
oh, sorry, roll call. Let's call the roll.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
aye,
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. At this time, if you would like to come on up and speak to this item, now would be the time to do so. Come on up.
My name is Wayne Mosher. I just have one question. You said salaries went up. Whose salaries went up? Is this everybody in the township, including hourly and salary?
You got to talk into the microphone.
I'm sorry, I thought I
They
had a
can't hear you
loud
on the
voice.
Well,
I'm just wondering with the salary increase, is this your hourly people that got to increase, or is this all like salary people that got to increase?
Everyone.
Everyone got it,
Except the
hourly and
trustees.
salary.
except the
Except
trustees.
Except trustees.
Okay, that's all I want to know. When you talk about salary increases, I just want to find out who it is.
Yeah, every year, typically 2% for your hourly salary employees, or not hourly, but for the elected official, you have a separate committee that looks at it every 2 years and gives us a recommendation, so.
Okay, I'm just kind of new at this. I just wanted to find out who's getting money.
Not-
All right, thank you.
Any more comments? Okay, seeing none, I look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye,
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. At this time, Mr. Manning, come on up.
Once again, with the other funds, the budgets did not change that much. The ones that did change, the fire department, we were paying the equipment loans out of the fire district fund. That is now coming out of the fire equipment fund. New millage that was passed. Police fund, there's no change. Park, general fund contribution will be the same. Library budget went down $10,000. DDA, no change. And the SADs, it's the money that comes in is used for construction and/or paying off bonds and interest.
Comments or questions? Mr. Francis?
Well, this is a group of 22 funds that we need to account for, and they're audited every year, just like all the other funds are. And it's called special revenue funds because it's just that. Some of the revenue comes in specifically for this, specifically for that. We set up a separate fund for it. David already mentioned that there's a brand-new fund for the fire equipment millage, which was passed. That was a $500,000. That'll be kept separate, and it's restricted for only equipment and maintenance to equipment, as I understand it.
It's just
Nothing else.
equipment.
Pardon?
I think it's just
Yeah.
equipment.
But nothing else. Can't spend it on buildings or anything else. It's for equipment. And that's really a necessary need because fire equipment is awfully expensive, as the chief can echo. We're probably going to be received sometime in the next month a $1.1 million ladder truck. We're replacing one that was, I think, a 92 vintage. The truck looked like it rolled off the showroom floor 2 or 3 years ago because they keep it in beautiful shape. The problem is spare parts. You can't get spare parts. And we needed that, so it's just an ungodly amount of money to spend for fire trucks.
Well,
But
you
we're
can't
not,
get them, you can't get them certified either.
No.
For 20
That is
years,
correct.
chief, or 25 years?
15, I think, isn't it?
25
Mhm.
years.
So that millage was desperately needed, and I'm very pleased that that passed. So that's all comments I got.
Okay. Any more comments? Seeing none, I look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I could make the same motion. I move that we accept and approve the special revenue fund budget appropriation resolution for those funds for the fiscal year 2019-2020 as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion supported, Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Dave, thank you for being here. Okay, item 2, approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda is submitted. Support.
Okay, motion supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Now, the consent agenda. A, approve and place on file the minutes of the May 21st, 2019 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, appoint Toni Morrin to the Library Advisory Board for a partial term ending 12/31/19. C, appoint Aaron Adler to the Library Advisory Board for a partial term ending 12/31/19. D, appoint Nicholas Mariano to the Fire Board of Appeals for a first term ending 6/30/22. E, appoint Larry Porter II to the Fire Board of Appeals for a first term ending 6/30/21. Look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Brandt.
I don't believe we've actually created that Board of Appeals yet, have we? We've talked about it, but I don't know if we've actually created it. And maybe we ought to create it before we appoint people to it.
I mean, it's part of the fire code, and we
I
approve
know.
the fire code, so I'm not sure we have to approve that separately.
That's what I was thinking, that, I totally agree with Paul, but I think that it was approved in the document, or it was established in the document of the, is that what you were going to say? Of the fire code that we already approved, that said we had to appoint one, so this is appointing it. But it doesn't matter, we could also make a motion to establish it, it doesn't, an extra motion doesn't hurt.
No, if everyone else thinks it's already included, I know it's part of the code, and that we voted to comply with the entire code, and that was part of it, but it just says you'll have one. It didn't say we approved or actually created it. We just adopted the code. We didn't create the committee. Maybe it's just semantics, but
I'm good with it the way
Okay.
that it is.
no problem.
Okay, I look for Ms. Tidbury.
I would like to pull from the consent agenda B and C, and if that is okay with everyone, then I would make a motion to approve it, A, D, and E, and put B and C down in new business. So that we
Can
don't hold
I
up
ask why?
Yeah, because the list of applicants are in our packet, and I would like to recommend someone else.
Okay. You're going to have to make a motion on that.
It has to be a second to pulling B and C.
There's a motion. I look for support.
I'll support, but just as a parliamentary question, when we approve the agenda, should that not have been done?
No, the consent agenda is separate. The agenda is approved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Right.
and the
Yeah.
consent agenda is separate.
Yeah, I support for a vote.
So we'll put B and C down at 8D. Good with that?
Yep.
Okay, with the changes, we want to make a separate motion, or we just want to approve it as submitted with the changes?
Right.
Okay. You want to make another motion, or you already
No,
made
that
one?
was my motion.
Okay.
I would make a
Supported.
motion.
Yep.
Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll?
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Okay, item 4, presentations, presenting and honoring the Beautification Committee. This is something that I think all of us can be really proud of this great group of people over the years. It's disappointing that it's not going to continue on, but I look back at what all you guys have done over the however many years, 30 years you were together, working hard, and I think that's part of the success is you're a group of friends that worked together and enjoyed what you did, and when it stopped, it was really, really hard to replace you guys. So I think all of us up here realize more than ever how important you really were to the community and to us, so we just want to honor you for that, so.
Can I just make a comment too? Because they'll all be gone before, they're not going to sit through the rest of this boring meeting, but I want to, I mean, there are gentlemen that have been on this committee too over the years, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart as a resident of 40 years in this township, or 50 years, sorry. I try to get my age back there. You have done more for this township, and I just say this is just the honest truth from my heart. You've done more as a committee in this township than any other committee that has ever been established or appointed or done, you know, creative work or work through the township. I'm just in awe of the hard work that you've put in. It's more than I could have ever done. And you've made the township beautiful, the park, the streets. It's just amazing to me. And I'm just very thankful for each and every one of you and the others that couldn't be here tonight, too. I just really appreciate you.
And did all that all those years with no recognition for it.
Exactly.
Shame on us.
No pay.
That's right, and no
Would
pay.
like to just come on up and just stand up here with us, and we'll read it and then hand you your certificates and take a picture. So come on up, please. Come on up.
It's too late, you're on candid camera.
Right in front of there. We'll take a quick pic afterwards. Just one.
You look beautiful.
When we're done, we'll get back.
Jan,
Yep, as soon as we're done, we'll get back.
are you gonna give Jan the thing? Jan's asked.
I have one for everyone.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you, Nancy.
Oh, thank you.
From another Nancy.
Yeah.
So in honor of the Bedford Beautification Committee, whereas participation as a member of the Bedford Beautification Committee was voluntary and required an immense level of time, commitment, and dedication, and whereas this participation and dedication has beautified many areas of our township, especially but not limited to the Township Government Center and the Bedford Library, and whereas the Bedford Beautification Committee's Yard of the Month has inspired and honored many Bedford residents, and whereas the many seminars the Bedford Beautification Committee has sponsored have enlightened and educated the Bedford residents, and whereas the entire Bedford community has greatly benefited from their outstanding contributions, including the children's garden at the library, the poinsettia plants delivered to various locations, numerous tree lighting events, and Bedford's birthday celebration, just to name a few. And whereas their early recycling activities and their desire to promote conservation and sustainability in Bedford Township helped pave the way for the current Green Initiatives Committee. And now let it be resolved that the Bedford Township Board hereby honors and recognizes the achievements of their exemplary work, can't talk, and devotion to the community of Bedford, and be it further resolved that the Bedford Township Board and the citizens of Bedford Township offer their heartiest thanks to each member of the Bedford Beautification Committee for their outstanding work. In witness, therefore, the undersigned members of the Bedford Township Board have executed this resolution on this 4th day of June, 2019.
Not better, it's probably more comfortable.
We're not all here either.
People say that about me, too.
Let's get a quick pic, Logan, you want to see that? Get a pic. Want to squeeze in here, everybody? Squeeze tight.
You don't want nothing, do you?
A little bit further, I actually get handsome.
I don't have a lens that long.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Somebody knocked off his name.
Okay. Item number 5 is comments from the public. Comments limited to 2 minutes for board agenda items only. Come on up.
Lamar Frederick, 3254 Deer Creek Drive, Lambertville. When I saw that the presentation this evening was for the Bedford Beautification Committee, I had to show up.
Amen. I thought that's right.
These ladies, if I've been around since 1994. I was a supervisor starting in 96. And these ladies just are wonderful in all of the things that they do. And when you see them in the summer out here, in the front of the old Township Hall, sweating like crazy, working hard, not taking a break. You wonder, why are they doing it? Because they love to do it. Some of them are master gardeners. Some of them are just difficult to deal with. But Carol, raise your hand. Carol came to me once and said, "How come Samaria doesn't get any trees?" And we were passing out trees to the various parts of subdivisions. And I said, "Well, guess what, Carol, you're now on the beautification committee starting the next meeting." And here she is, still here. And they did. They put in we put trees in. They spent money on trees. They spent. When you go to the library at Christmas time, and you see all of the work that they have done. I know I'm taking more than 2 minutes, but it'll go on for an hour of all the things that they've done for this community for free.
Yeah.
They have dedicated themselves to this community in a manner that not a lot of people have done. And for my 8 years when I worked with you, I appreciated every minute. And Janet and some of the others well, we had so much fun sometimes. And sometimes it was like, why are you doing that? But it was something that they thought was important. And I just want to congratulate each and every one of them for all of the things that you've done for our community. You sometimes don't get the praise that you should have, but I'll heap it on you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public?
I'm gonna have to get these ladies to come over to my house and work on my house a little bit. Logan Tisdale, 1308 Brandywine Street. This is in regards to agenda item 8C, request for approval of summer hours for township employees. These summer hours would give our township employees more time with their families while they would still be working the same amount of hours at the township by taking shorter breaks during the week. It's a financial benefit to the township since it saves on air conditioning costs and lighting and other things like that. I don't think it should be a major inconvenience to Bedford residents since the township offices will still be open in the morning on Fridays. I think it's a great idea and should be voted for approval by the Township Board. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public?
Wayne Mosier, 7502 Wilfred Drive, Temperance, Michigan. His comment, I think it is where cutting those hours is not benefiting all the people here in the township. You have no days during the week open late, so a person that gets out at 5 o'clock can come here and take care of business. I used to get out of work at 4:30 and I had to drive 40 miles home. I could never be here at the township. I'm retired now. I can be here all day long. But I think by cutting hours, you're cutting services to the township. If you're gonna give these employees a half day off, then there should be one night a week, they should be here till 7 o'clock. And that way you're helping the people in the township. I looked at your social media, and a lot of people, that's another thing. We'll get to that in a minute. I think I'm gonna run over a little bit over 2 minutes. But I don't think you should use social media for this. I think you ought to contact every homeowner about this. That way they can have the opportunity to come here and voice their opinion. Right now, we have what, over 31,000 people here in Bedford Township, plus? And as you see comments on Facebook, I might have seen 100, maybe not even that. So you didn't even reach out even, what, 2%, 1%? So I think you ought to keep the hours the way they are. If you want to cut the hours, you should have one night a week. And you're still making the same amount of money. If you have to juggle schedules, you juggle schedules. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, Dale Track, 2842 Sanibel Lane. I'm speaking in regards to agenda item 8C as well, the summer hours. I would just like to get an understanding of what data points were used to come up with the fact that the foot traffic has been reduced on Friday versus any other day. Do you have a tracking of that? Do you know how many phone calls you've received? How many people have come through the door? How many passport requests? How many permits were issued? How many inspections were requested or performed? And not just for the day, but for the year. And that way you can really see where you drew your conclusions from. Right now, it seems arbitrary that, okay, it's Friday, and I get it. I've worked in private industry before where it's slow on certain times, and you can obviously see that. But on those slow times, I question, was there cross-training going on? If there was no traffic, were those people going home early? Were they taking vacation time to go home early? So those are things that, concern me. If you don't have the data points, I don't know how you drew your conclusions. And oftentimes when you watch the board meetings, you hear, well, what is the plan? Where's your information? What do you have to back it up? And as a trustee, the full-time elected officials, they see that. But as a trustee, you're going by the three-time elected officials, pre-elected officials. So also, if there's any Saturday or evening considerations as well. And lastly, one thing there's two board members here that were here 10 years ago. Just remember where you were at 10 years ago, what we were doing. And I'll talk in the second comments. That's about the data points as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments? Okay, seeing none, moving on to new business. A, request for approval of vouchers for payment.
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $13,639.37. Fire District, $7,496.05. Police Fund, $1,199.42. Park Fund, $14,242.66. Transit System Fund, $18,265. Library Fund, $6,714.27. Indian Acres SAD, $9,763.35. Mildred Avenue SAD, $259.13. Lewiston Estates SAD, $6,474.10. Downtown Development Authority, $77.75. Sewer O&M Fund, $348.90. Trust and Agency Fund, $850, for a grand total of $79,330.
I'll support.
Motion and supported. Mr. Francis, discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Fishberger votes aye. Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8B, request for approval of the annual Michigan Township Association membership for the period July 2019 through June 2020. I mean, this is the annual dues that we, do every year through MTA. Anybody has any comments or questions? We utilize them almost weekly with their legal and everything, that goes on there. Data, we use their websites and stuff like that. So, I mean, we definitely utilize them. I don't know if you have any other comments on ways, Trudy, that you utilize it, but
Salary reviews,
yeah, stuff like that. Ms. Tinneberry?
used quite a bit.
I think the MTA is the most impactful organization that this township and townships in the whole state rely on. I, as always, am against the legal defense. Have we ever received some kind of a accounting of the legal defense fund? No.
Not that I'm aware of.
My sentiments exactly. It goes into a bottomless pit. We don't find out what it's used for, where it goes. I just am totally opposed to it, so. I usually make a motion, but it doesn't go anywhere, nobody else support it without the legal defense fund, so I'm not gonna go there tonight, but,
Well, I'll make it without it. $6,698.
oh, it's support.
Okay, motion, support, or discussion?
Mr. President?
Mr. Steiner, discussion?
You know, Nancy's right about the organization and how impactful they are. And I recently signed up, I don't know if it was a good thing or bad, but I signed up in the community portion of the website. But there's a lot of useful information, but I also got a lot of opinions. At first, I thought I was getting a lot of spam mail all of a sudden, but it was all legitimate MTA, and I forwarded a couple of those emails to, I think I sent you some, Paul, and I might even sent, I'm not sure if I remember sending one to the fire chief I was going to, but there's different subjects that I get all the time, from roads to fire to this type of ordinance or that type of ordinance, or how, you know, does anybody have this type of ordinance? I can see yours. Can I, you know, look at it, maybe use it? So it's been a very good tool. It's just that sometimes it gets a little overwhelming with the number of emails, but overall, it has turned out to be very informational. It's a good tool.
Mr. Montre?
I guess I would, at first, when I was looking at this, I kind of thought this would be a kind of a quick check, regular kind of thing. And I was just like, because, I mean, I guess I get a little bit of value just from my short tenure. I was curious if there is, like, even anecdotal examples of, like, a major value that we are getting from that.
Legal.
Not this legal.
No, not this
No.
legal defense, but
Legal
They
advice in
call this the
general.
legal questions almost
rather than our
Okay.
every week.
And that's right there alone makes up for it? Okay.
If we're not members, Trudy, can we still call them?
No, they won't talk to us.
No.
I was just like at our rate times the like amount of townships, it'd be like $8.5 million a year of, like, it just seems like, and then at like 5,000 would be $6.2 million of like revenue for, that's why I was just like, are we getting like that kind of,
Do you get their magazine?
Yeah.
I'll get their full of
$7,000 is a
important-
lot for a magazine. That's why I was asking for.
Oh, there's a lot more than the magazine. I'm saying each one of us can read that magazine and get extraordinary information out,
Training throughout the year.
yeah.
I mean, you can, it's,
You gotta pay for that training though, right?
yeah. But
So
it's
it's like-
cheaper as a membership with a
Okay.
member.
That's why I'm asking. Is like, at first I was kind of like thinking that, but then I wanted to see what the board thought of, oh, like, if it's, like
They're
I said,
in
I have a
on it.
short tenure to really have gained value out of it.
They're in on almost every piece of legislation that's passed or discussed in Lansing.
They're our lobbyist group.
Yes.
And so, but
So
this
we need to get
legal
them working
defense,
more.
this legal defense that they charge extra for is not specifically for Bedford Township. It's for the vast, all the townships, 1,200 townships in the state, that if any one of them have some kind of a legal situation, then that they can't afford to defend, then this fund helps them do that, but it's not benefit Bedford. We always go to our own attorney, so, which I say we should. I'm just saying it's not a benefit to us.
But if we got in a large suit that exceeded our insurance coverage, it might. That's what it's for. It's for townships that get into large legal issues and lawsuits, and they can't afford it. So in effect, the rest of the townships that, in the state that contribute to that fund, help share that extra burden. So for a couple $100, I think, personally, I think it's worth doing, because we might benefit at some point. Have we? I don't think we ever have since I've been around. That doesn't mean we won't.
But that's what that 200 is. It's like an insurance. It's like pretty much an insurance on that.
I mean, it's slim. You know, we've never had to use it here for anything, but
We have good insurance.
it
Yeah, we
could.
do. We
Coverage
have very good
for-
insurance.
It could.
Not a grant.
You never know.
Yeah.
It's not a make or break item for me to vote for this. If you don't want it in, that's fine, but that's what it's used for.
Right, but it's the legal defense. It goes to the legal defense of a case, not the insurance. His idea of insurance was it's insurance, not.
Yeah, insuring yourself against, you're insuring yourself against that kind of situation.
All right, we have a motion and support. Call the roll, please.
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clement?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Now, this, I'm sorry, this is without the legal defense? Okay, aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8C, request for approval of summer hours for the township. I put this on. It's actually turned into a lot more than what I thought it would. We've had a lot of great conversations. We put this out on social media. I've gotten a lot of phone calls from people with ideas and different thoughts on what we can do. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to turn into something that, if we approve it, that can serve the residents of the township better, and also probably give a little perk to the people that work here that would like to leave on Friday at noon. When we first brought this up, we, didn't put a ton of thought into it. We had a couple meetings on it, and, just thought it'd be for the summer, but this is something that after nearly, the two polls I have, 500 people, 525 people roughly that have voted yes, 86 that want a later day. A lot of people want that later day, which I think is a great idea, having that later day. When you go to the Secretary of State on a Wednesday, it's packed till 7 o'clock. And I think we would probably get utilized. I don't know about in the same way, but I think a lot of people would utilize that later day. It was kind of funny. I was at the business summit today for Dundee, and they announced their summer hours. And we had a meeting earlier today talking about what we could do differently, and it was almost exactly the same as what Dundee's doing. A late day on a day of a meeting day. Theirs is till 7 o'clock, normal business hours, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then your half day on Friday. So you're meeting the needs of the residents that work till 9 to 5 or 8 to 5. You're open till 6, 7 o'clock, and also the employees during summer hours, summertime, get an opportunity to leave. I've seen a lot of people that say, hey, why don't you guys open on a Saturday for a few hours? That's all up for discussion here. Mr. Steiner was gracious enough to take some time and go over about 5 or 6 different options. I think we came with 2 or 3 with what we did, but the option that's actually on the agenda, which is it's up for discussion, it's up for change. It was, basically, we were going to cut down the lunch hours. You can cut down lunch hours. You can't, it gets sticky when you cut breaks. We're not cutting breaks. Right now, with what they have, it's 2 15-minute breaks and an hour lunch every day. So there's an hour and a half right there. So with cutting lunches down to a half hour and keeping their 2 15-minute breaks, that kind of makes up for some of the time. So y'all got an email today from Gene, saying, why don't you guys poll the whole community in some way? Now, I'm opposed to sending letters to every house because I don't want to see us spend $15,000 on finding out, what exactly the community wants, because in my opinion, you're probably going to get about the average of what you have through my 700 votes on Facebook. But I gotta agree with you. There's got to be a way we can reach the community through newspapers. What else? Saying, hey, make a phone call. We could always put it in the newsletter when the quarterly newsletter comes up to reach out with something to cut out to mail back in. There's different ways, but so what I would say, we kind of look at is a lot of people want to see the later day. And I think it's definitely something we need to consider and have the 3 normal days and then a half day on Friday.
Could you clarify what you threw out those numbers? What were those? What did those?
I put a poll on Facebook.
What was the poll? That's my.
It was just asking people's thoughts. I put the hours on there, and it basically said oppose this or support it. And I put the information up there of what I was talking about with the hour change for the summer. And from that, I had 521 people say yes to it, and,
Just to that simple question.
yeah.
And they didn't comment, it was just
Oh, we
opposed
had
or support.
60, 70 comments. There was comments, it was all over the map. I mean, a lot of people supported it through the comments. You had probably 5 or 6, 7 negative. I mean, it was,
They didn't give, see, that's my point, I mean, just
That's,
to
I mean, I'm
not
not,
have a
it was
reason.
just, I mean, it was just something to kind of get a feel of what people thought. And through that, we got 86 people that said, hey, we want to see a later hour, a later day. Because it's hard for me to come when I get off work at 4:30, by the time I get home, you're closed. So 86 people said that. And then 50 said, we oppose the thing totally. Mr. Steiner?
You know, I guess my biggest concern is, this is on the agenda, we haven't talked about this, but yet we put a poll out. I don't disagree with notifying the community this is something we'd like to do, and it probably should have been done earlier than this week starts summer. Number of years ago, I don't remember if it wasn't to this specific board, I don't remember if it was the last board or when, but I proposed an evening, like Wednesdays, because like you said, Secretary of State is open on Wednesdays. It seems like that's a good night of business. So maybe that would tie in, because I know some people might have some business here, and they, go right to Secretary of State possibly. It eliminates people having to cut their work hours short, and maybe having to cut their pay, saying, I gotta go home 2 hours early because I have to go to Township Hall for something. So I think that's an option. My one thing to think about here is where you make the adjustment, because there's never a one-size-fits-all either. Because let's just say that the 7 of us are all here all day long, and I can stay till 7 o'clock. Well, but Nancy can only stay till 5 o'clock. And, maybe one other person could only stay till 5, and they can't stay till 7. So how do we accommodate those people as well? Where do they get their extra hours in to make the cut? The reason I put this together is the original proposal, either it wasn't clear enough or it just wasn't hitting mustard here.
Well, just to clarify, this wasn't put on with a big study. It wasn't put on with a lot of data, because let's be honest, we don't have any data for the township. I just went around to each group and said, hey, how busy are you on Fridays? And for the most part, everybody on Friday afternoon, it gets very slow. Not non-existent, but it gets very slow. So at that point, I said, you know what, I'll put it on, we'll get some ideas, we'll have some discussion, and we'll see where it goes. You know what I mean? So that
Well,
was.
like I said, I get that about communicating with the community, but I will tell you this much. And when did you put the post up?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. So that in 2 days, you had over 500-600 comments total, probably.
Not comments, you had about
Or-
700
Or
votes.
votes, or yes or no in comments included.
But it slowed down a lot today.
So, right there tells me if more people knew about it ahead of time, had more time, you may have a lot of people that disagree or agree. And again, I don't know how you would sit down and track every single phone call, every single person that walks in, because they may just walk in to say hi to people, because they're in the neighborhood. They may be walking in to do business. We don't know that, and that's something that's very subjective and hard to figure that out. But Mr. Track made a good point, and this has happened many times where we bring stuff up, and in this case, there's not a good way to have supporting data, except for say, well, there's hardly any foot traffic on Fridays. But I guess the key there would be that how many phone calls are there? And then if we do close completely on a Friday, the what if? What if there's somebody that needs someone within the township for a township function?
My cell number's out there on Facebook.
But not everybody's got Facebook.
I get messenger requests constantly, my emails on the web, I believe me,
Okay,
I get
but if
emails.
somebody comes to this building not realizing that they're closed and they really need something that day, I mean, are we gonna put cell phones on the front door to call this number? I mean, I'm not being critical,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, we've got to still have a way that the township can communicate. And, you know, if they need something, then, like, you can't very well say, well, we told you that, you know, we put it up on Facebook that we were going to be closed on Fridays in the afternoons. I just struggle with that.
I think Gene's request to postpone it a couple ways and reach out to the community is a good idea.
Well,
Like I said, this was just put on to get the ball rolling, to get the ball started, you know. Ms. Tenenberry?
Well, that's my first comment. This is on here for discussion. So let's have discussion and let's not get defensive.
Oh, I'm not
okay?
getting defensive.
Everybody-
I'm not like you. I'm not getting defensive.
Oh, really? Okay, gotcha. Gotcha.
Paul, point
Well,
of
I'm
order,
going
sir.
to offer some opposition, so just a warning. Government office is for far more things than foot traffic. And if you don't have a lot of foot traffic on Friday afternoon, there's a lot of other work that can be done. We just hired several assessing people. You mean to tell me that they can't go out and do assessing on Friday afternoon if their foot traffic is low? I know a lot of people, realtors and title agents, people call to get information on Friday, so phone calls come in. The building department, they're low on Friday afternoon. There's a lot of places they could go inspect. The planning department is talking about reviewing lots of ordinances. If the foot traffic is low, that work should be done. The ordinance department, we just brought on all these extra ordinance people for
Well, keep in
watching
mind,
for fires. Got the floor, excuse me. So maybe they could be reviewing these ordinances and you know, clerk's department, planning for the upcoming election. We just have a new law. There's a lot of, out there in the e-learning center, a lot of things that are supposed to be being read and studied, and, you know, and I know they're doing it. I'm not suggesting they're not, but there are other things that could be done. And I can't believe that the phone calls are not coming in. So my concern is we're making adjustments for 25 people that I love and I support, but I can't see making a change to, we'd have to change our personnel policy. It has different hours. We'd have to change our union contract. I can't see making all these changes when 30,000 people, out of those 30,000, there might only be 25 that need help on Friday afternoon. But I think we're jumping far down to come up with a solution for something that I don't think is broken, number one. And I had one other thing else.
Well, keep in mind while you're thinking, okay, they're working 40 hours now. They're going to be working 40 hours continuing on. That's not going to change.
Yeah,
So there's
I'm not
no
saying it is.
downtime for them just because they say, hey, nobody's calling, they're still working on ordinance. Ordinance department won't be affected. Their schedule's not going to change. Okay, maintenance department's not going to change.
Why are
So,
we changing it for just a few?
Well, because the maintenance
everybody.
department comes in at 7 o'clock and they're done at 3:30 every day. They're going to be on the same schedule. So,
Well, it didn't
I'm
say
just
that.
saying, you're saying, you know, just because there's no foot traffic, they can be doing it, believe me, they're still working their 40 hours. They're still doing
No, I
other
get they're
things.
working their 40 hours, but they're taking less time for lunch that nobody knows about. Can you know, I'm just saying that to cut off a whole afternoon for people that need to make a phone call, need to come in, or not come in, okay, so the foot traffic is low. That there's other things that these departments should be working on, cross-training. I mean, maybe the treasurer's department could go over and learn something from the assessing department and vice versa. There's a lot of things that can be done just because there's no one walking through the door. That's how I feel. We're here for more than just handling people who walk in out of the parking lot.
And they're doing that. They're not,
I agree.
I'm just saying, just because
I agree. But they could do it those 4 hours in the afternoon on Friday too.
Mr. Clements?
So when I got the memo, and I first wanted to say you did call me Monday, and we talked about this, and I appreciated that. I got this memo in full disclosure as this was going to be a benefit conversation for staff. And I don't think that's off the table. But at the same time, what it doesn't address is service for residents. It doesn't address potential savings with all the environmental utilities that we may or may not use during the times that we're talking about shifting hours. I think that a good point was brought up, that I agree with Rick in the sense that people come into this building for a myriad of reasons. And if you tick off that a person walked in the door because they dropped their water bill or they engaged in an hour-long conversation with building, that's tough to quantify. I get that. I also think that we all are also prone to Tuesday afternoon when it's busy and we know we still have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in front of us. It's a different set of lenses than when it's 11 o'clock at Friday and we're looking and we're not busy and we're thinking, well, darn, I could be on my way up to the cabin up north, or there's a lot of other places I could be. So I think at a minimum, there's got to be some type of data or metrics or evaluation of the why are we doing this. So let's establish what's the why. If this is an employee benefit, then let's talk about the why of employee benefit. If we want to improve services to this community, let's talk about that. The only thing I would caution us is that I feel like we're having this all or nothing discussion. It's as if every department has to be here from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on a set number of days. I would argue that if there's need, and the need outweighs the utility expense, and I think you guys know where I'm going with this, not everybody from the clerk's department has to be here if we have later hours. Not everybody from the treasurer's department has to be here, not everybody from maintenance. So there is a potential by which we could flex hours based on need and deliver a lot more services to the community and still not necessarily impact entire departments. And I think to Dale's point, those are the metrics that we have to talk about. My only other hesitation is that I do think at some level, this is going to have some impact on our labor contracts, and we need to be aware of that and make sure that we just don't jump headlong into this without at least considering that and putting ourselves into a grievance situation. Or
I talked to Phil Nance on the labor issue. So we don't have to change anything with.
So we can just flex those hours and contracts?
We're not flexing their hours at all. Their hours are staying the same.
Okay, we're not flexing their commitment of hours on a weekly basis. We have that discretionary right. So we can arbitrarily, without contract agreement, shift from 6 a.m. to.
I'm saying we're not.
Okay, we're not.
We're not touching the maintenance department.
So they're gonna stay straight?
They're staying the same.
Okay.
This is just for people working within the township. And this does not include ordinance department either.
So what is that rationale? Why does maintenance not need off at noon and everybody else would be, explain it, I don't get that.
So you're saying that we should consider putting them on the same schedule?
No, I'm not. I don't even know what schedule would be the most ideal. I think we ought to look at that.
I mean, they've had a different schedule from us for years. I mean,
Right.
They start very early,
Right.
and they get out early. I mean, they cut grass, and they're trying to get out of the parks. I mean, we're not
Sure.
gonna be cutting at parks when they're having ball games at 7 o'clock.
No, I get it.
You know what I mean? They're just on a different schedule.
But I guess what I'm saying is,
Doing snow.
if this whole exercise is to improve services, then if we're gonna look at schedules, we might as well look at theirs. Because what if a 30-minute
How
start
did they
change
get cut out?
impacts
That's my
that?
point.
Well,
How did the
okay, hold on,
ordinance
let me
and
back it
maintenance
up.
get cut out?
They're not. Let's have the discussion.
Okay,
I don't make the
because-
decision. So let's just have the
Exactly.
discussion. It's up for,
So, first
I
off,
just didn't put them into this ball because I don't see it. Ordinance doesn't have full-time at all. So ordinance works 7 days a week, okay? They work from 8 a.m., 8 in the morning till 9 at night. So how are they gonna get put into this? Maintenance works very early and they get out early every single day for a reason. So I just didn't put them in it. If you guys see a need and you wanna mess with union contracts, go ahead.
No,
Let's talk about
Can I
it.
finish my last thought real quickly? I think we've stumbled into a good idea. I think the fact of the matter is this should be evaluated, because I think the byproduct of this discussion could yield better service to our residents. I just want to be sure that as we move forward, that's the light that we're looking at this from. And as long as we can justify the balance and the shifts and all that, I don't know if that's necessarily a problem, but I love the idea of being more available for our residents.
In the beginning of this, I'm, to be honest, I was nervous to put this on the agenda, but today I felt really good about it. The fact that it's turning into something that we can look at maybe year-round and not just summer. If we're gonna reach more, I'm telling you right now, a lot of people reached out and said they want later hours here, a day. A lot of people can't get here. So I mean, that right there is a service to a lot of people that we haven't provided ever. This hasn't changed in 50 years. So I mean, if we can get into a conversation and figure out a way to reach more people, it's turned into that. Mr. Montre?
Yeah, like, just for sake of discussion, like, originally I was, like, just opposed, no, like, it was pretty cut and dry, and just because, I don't know, it didn't seem to serve the community. It seemed like it was like, I guess that'd be, you know, I mean, it'd be nice to be out early on Friday, but like that doesn't necessarily make sense. But like what TC said, that's how I viewed it, is I feel like we kind of stumbled upon a good idea / like something that was kind of like even obvious, maybe even before, but just never had been looked into. And I think it's I think it's great to have the discussion to see, like, because I feel like it can be a win-win. Because I think like, if we can we're still open for 45 hours a week, but I mean, like, it's something I had never thought of before, like, but like the Secretary of State thing. And I've appreciated Paul being, like, or just being transparent with the whole thing as well, just kind of saying like, hey, this is kind of how it happened, and I'm not claiming to have a ton of data. It was an idea, but I love how it's kind of turned into, and I appreciate the discussion if it can turn into serving the community better.
Well,
like, so, like what Wayne had said of like, I'm sure that's a huge thing, and it's probably only, I think it's few and far between that there's township hall emergencies that you like, I have to get to, I need someone at town hall today. Like, I feel like that's probably a few and far between thing. But if you have to do the one thing you have to do, trying to, every 6 months or whatever that you would need to be here, then it's kind of like just a very inconvenient thing I'm going to have to figure out how to get off work early or do something to be able to get over here. I really like the idea of being able to do something in the evenings, as long as we can still, I would want it to stay, you're still serving the community 45 hours total.
Mr. Steiner?
As I said, you know, a number of years ago, I brought it up, and it was like it was on deaf ears and didn't go too far. I've said for a long time that, again, a possible Wednesday evening for a couple hours, but my suggestion back then was just staggering shifts. So if somebody says, okay, this week, you're the one that's off early on Friday or whatever day you know, that is chosen, and you're the one that's going to work on Wednesday nights, and have a number of people from various departments, because you can't say one department, because if somebody specifically needs the clerk, and the clerk is not here, but it's staffed under a treasurer or under supervisor, well, that's not who they need to see. So it would have to be someone from each department still available. Again, I'm not opposed to finding a way to expand the hours, because, again, I brought it up years ago. But I guess the only other thing I would ask is, at minimum, and Mr. Clemens brought up about the energy savings and the environmental impact, even that alone, if we could say, you know what, here's how much our bill is for electricity during the summer, break that down by day. That's pretty simple. If you look at how much we paid every month during the summer months, and you could say, well, if we spent $1,000 a day and we cut a half a day or a little more than half a day out by hours from 8 to 4 instead, 8 to noon instead of till 5, you cut 5 hours out. That's how many hours we cut out. Now, you can't split it completely, because you still have to keep the building maintained in closed hours too. You just need to turn your AC up at that point. But that's one thing to look at from that standpoint.
I would see that being a positive. We were closed all day Friday. But like, we're going to be open later Monday if this did happen, and early on Friday, I think it's a wash. You want to see savings, we need to get controls for this building. And then you can control each room that's heated and aired throughout the day, and that's where you're going to see a really significant savings.
Especially rooms like this.
Especially rooms like this that are heated and aired 24/7. So I do want to let you guys know, we did a week, when did we do that, Trudy? Last week, sent an email out to the builders and the architects and all the engineers that we deal with. There was probably 100 different emails, and we had no negative comments. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We did get data from the building department. Friday is the least amount of building permits that were pulled, according to what Linda said and the information. So I mean, it's not a ton of data. Like I said, this conversation, we could table it 100% and do something. You know, I'm not gonna, you know, I don't know what that suggestion is to get the data. You know, Dale's mentioned a few different times throughout the years, you know, we need to get somebody in here, hire somebody to do a, what have you been calling that? A time study, you know what I mean? So it's up to the board. I think, like Craig said, it's turned into something that can be a positive thing, you know, and go from there. Mr.
Well,
Steiner?
you just added some fuel to that fire there, because, you know, if we'd have had something to go with, even, you know, this was the initial email in our packet, but we could have had, just like tonight, I put this out today with the schedule. You know, you could have had the front of the board tonight to glance at least, say, okay, here's the stuff that, this was posted on Facebook, here's the yeses, here's the nos, and here's a few comments. You just mentioned that you polled the builders almost a week ago, and the builders seem to be okay with it. So that kind of stuff, I think that, I mean, again, it's not scientific data, but that's some research that was at least done that would have helped us, and it may have steered this into a little bit different conversation.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm fine either way. It got to be crazy, and this week, and all this, some of them small things got away from me. But like I said, if you want me to go back and put it on the agenda for next time and put something in the papers and then give you the data from the builders, which is really nothing, and the information off Facebook or whatever, however you want to do it, it's up to you guys. If you want to table it, do nothing with it, it's fine too. Ms. Tenenberry?
I think you better find out how many of your employees are gonna wanna work late at night, because.
We talked to every employee.
And they said they would work 7 to 9 or something?
Well, I mean, for the most part, all of them, you know, seem to be fine with getting out early on Friday to do a little something later in the day.
Did you ask them if they would be willing to work nights?
Not every night, but one night they were fine with that. We didn't just willy-nilly do it and throw it on. We talked to the employees and got their thoughts on it.
But this
We
doesn't
asked
say
every
anything
employee
about-
about cutting their hour lunch into a half hour.
This doesn't say anything that you were willing to work a night. This was just getting Fridays off. So
That was
this-
put out before we had the next meeting, talked to a couple different trustees, got a bunch of phone calls from the public, and, you know, we had that just, you know, and then like I said, I was at Dundee's Business Summit, and they're doing the exact thing that we talked about yesterday or early this morning.
Dundee's a village.
I get it, I'm just saying.
We got 30,000 people.
I get it.
Well, you did have in your last proposal, or at least the bottom on this sheet, it does say 10 hours on Monday. Instead of 4, it says 5 on Friday. Makes the township open a total of 42 hours. And if they all cut their lunches by a half hour for 4 days, that is 2 hours off of the 42, puts them back at the 40 hours worked hours.
Where do you see that?
That's on the second page. The only downfall to what that is, if we, you know, go off that schedule, you know, is the township hall is open 3 hours less than it has been. Right now, it's
The
open
same
45.
amount of money?
Huh?
Their pay is gonna be the same amount?
Keep in mind, Nancy, they're working 40 hours.
You said 40.
No, the township's open 45
Oh,
hours right now.
You're right. Okay.
Each employee's working 40 hours regardless of the time change. They're just not gonna, like, every day, somebody's gone for an hour for lunch. They won't be now, if it changes, so.
Yeah, so you got 1 day till 6 PM, and instead of 4 hours on Friday, you went 5.
And all that's
You're not-
up for debate. I mean, if somebody says, hey, we want to see you stay till 7 on a Wednesday, we can talk about it. You know, I know the Monday came up because that was the best night for most of the people, a lot of the people at the township, you know, so.
I think Secretary of State 7 o'clock is a little different than Township Hall at 7. So, again, maybe a 10-hour day is the right number.
Monday was talked about because we got a lot of meetings other days, and it was I think, right, Trudy?
Monday seems to be our busiest day. So this option 2, where it was Monday 8 to 6, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday 8 to 5, Friday 8 to 1, the employees did agree to that. that they would be willing to work that night.
I guess I have one other
Stern?
question. Foot traffic, I mean, that just kind of, people come in here for, well, I guess some people come and pay their taxes, pay their water bill, drive all the way over here, and to get inside to pay the bill. But, and they get their, they have to come here to register to vote, and the picture taken, assessing. Some people come in here for realtors. What other kind of, I mean, the ordinance department have foot traffic and the.
Oh, every department has foot traffic. There's some that have more than others. You know, I mean, like Trudy, I mean, everything with passports is scheduled. People
Well, I
call and
realize
schedule.
passports, but how many passports do you do in a week?
Oh, we average probably 15 to 20.
A week?
Yes.
We're
Okay.
busy all day long with passports. And then a lot of Paul's, I mean, is a Dropbox now, right, Paul? A lot of people are using the Dropbox.
The Dropbox doesn't close, does it?
No.
You can leave it open all night?
No.
Oh, well, that's my point. That's not gonna stop no matter what the hours are. So, I mean, I'm just thinking, out of 30,000 people, most people pay their bills online or in, a check, mail in a check, same way with taxes. I don't know, I'm just thinking that the foot traffic isn't heavy here anytime. I've been here some days and I don't see a lot of people coming to do anything, except to talk to you.
It's steady on certain, and most days it's steady. And then certain times, taxes, elections, it's swamped. I mean, but like your normal business days that aren't summer, I mean, it's steady. I mean, I get 15 to 20 walk-ins in my office almost, daily, sometimes less, sometimes more. And then phone calls, it fluctuates, it varies. I mean, we get 50 phone calls a day sometimes. But that's something I think you could check the data on pretty easily through Verizon, couldn't you?
What?
Just calls, I mean, the amount of calls we get.
Mhm.
I mean, so. So do we want to table this, do more of a study? Do we want to squash the whole thing, move on, keep the schedule the same? I think it's a good opportunity to, we don't want to get into a 3-month study and, and have nothing be done. So does anybody have any suggestions on how to move forward?
I say squash it.
Okay, other than Nancy?
Is it possible for the next week to just use a ticker at every service counter? Designate phone call to walk in. Let's look at the numbers. And my position would be is I'm not here 45 hours a week, so I'm not in a position to engage in a conversation about the veracity of that. What I would say is that if I'm gonna vote in favor of it, my only request would be just a little bit more than what we got in the packet, because that's difficult as a representative for the residents to be able to say, well, I had this, and no disrespect intended, I don't mean it that way at all. But I think the more information that's positive and that can affirm why we want to do this, the better the decision's going to be. But in theory, I support where we're headed with this.
Well, let's be specific though on what we want. What does the board want? Does the board want to spend money? Okay? Do we want to send something out in the papers? If we do, what do we want it to say? Do we encourage them to call? I mean, we got to be pretty specific in what we want to do. That's why I put it on the agenda, to find out how we want to move forward. Mr. Francis?
The big change in this proposal is shorter hours on Friday. Why don't we take your little survey and see what the traffic is on Friday afternoons?
Agreed.
Is it 600 people? Is it 2 people?
Yep.
Let's just get some history on just Friday, because that's the only change that's going to affect a lot of people, is Friday afternoon. They're getting more hours on, say, Monday, if you pick that as a longer day.
Now,
Say open till 6, or whatever you pick.
my thought is, okay, if you're cutting from an 8 to 5 to 8 to noon on Friday, is that like the kind of proposal? 8 to 1?
Well, the last one said 1.
So you're cutting 4 hours. Are we adding are we only adding 2 hours like, are you only doing 1 day a week that is 2 hours more? So you actually are cutting 2 hours of availability per week?
It's actually 1 hour because they went from 9 to 10 on that day because the other cuts are within the lunch hour that they're not taking.
Right.
Because if you look at that total number, if you get a 10-hour day, it's a total of 42 hours. So the
No, but that's paid hours, not hours available.
Oh, no, this is hours
It's
available. If you-
office hours.
The total hours of office opening would be 42 versus the current 45 in that last scenario. So you've got a 10-hour Monday, 9 on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then 5 instead of 4 on Friday, brings it up to a total of 42 business hours minus their 2 hours, which is 4 half-hour lunches, brings them to 40 work hours per person then.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, so it's still cutting,
It's a
it's still
3 hour
cutting 3 hours of availability.
3-hour total.
So, and that's, I guess, what I would, my thought with the 6 o'clock was, like, and I'm glad Wayne, like, said that, because I was thinking, okay, you're trying to do that to make it more available. I feel like that single hour is still cutting it tight for, you got a long drive, like, Rick coming from your drive home, or, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's cutting it tight. I would like to see, maybe a 7 o'clock at least one of the other days, if not like a Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, something like that. And I think that's not that difficult of a thing to stagger hours. I was just doing like kind of like, I don't know. I think that's a common thing where you have somebody come, like if you have, for example, 2 people in one department, the one guy comes in an hour earlier than the other one and leaves an hour earlier than the other one. Second guy comes in, you know what I mean? It's just a little bit of overlap. You're still covering your hours per, but you're providing that availability to the community.
Just keep in mind, whatever we do was meant to be a trial basis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and 2.5 months or whatever it is, we can come back and say, hey, residents love it, people hate it. I mean, we'd have a little bit data there. It's not permanent.
I'd like
I
to
mean,
see
it was
Paul
just-
here, all 45 though, just to oversee it.
Whatever. I'll run this whole place by myself.
And you'll be here till 10.
Finally, the truth
Tell you
comes
what,
out.
Mr. Supervisor, give me some, I'm gonna make my recommendation, give me some help, everybody, and let's get this moving forward.
I agree.
And this, again, this is not a scientific study, it's a quick analysis that we can have data for the next meeting and decide yay or nay, how to proceed. Number 1, check with the phone company, get our phone logs and calls for Fridays. As Mr. Clements mentioned, if we could just do a quick ticker, walk-in foot traffic on Friday. There's 2 of the most important things for your service. You got the walk-ins and you got your phone calls. Those are the 2 major points of contact. I don't want to get into saying emails because then that take it forever. You probably count them twice by accident. And then look at an energy bill. Now, mind you, if the township stays open an extra hour, that's not a lot. But cutting your building hours on a Friday in the middle of summer by 3 hours, just take a look at that energy bill and see what a daily cost would be. There was one other thing I had off the top of my head. Mr. Clements, you were reading my mind, I bet. What I missed?
I just wanted to piggyback and say that if you bring that data back with a proposal, I would like to see that proposal include an evening hour or what I'll call an alternative hour.
Right. That's it.
Or an alternative window.
With the specific day.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yep.
The only thing with just doing the data on Friday, like Mr. Track said, is what are you comparing it to? Say you get 20
Well-
walk-ins.
Well, that's where I was going to, that was another comment I was going to say. Since you're pulling the phone bill, that wouldn't be easy enough. I was going to say, compared to the Monday that the day that you're going to try to expand the hours, compare it
So
to that.
compare it to Monday, that would be better.
So if you compared Friday to Monday, because that's when you're saying, this is our heaviest day, now we're going to study the heaviest day and see if it maybe it's not even worth being open till 6 o'clock. Maybe nobody's ever going to show up on that day.
Now, something too, like Mr. Stock emailed everybody, we could do something in the papers, Trudy, I mean, just put something in there encouraging people to call. That way we can reach more of the residents, you know, like we said, we only put it on Facebook, and we could put more, we could put a clear statement on Facebook and share it on more social media or something, or boost
You're not
it.
gonna get that by the next,
Yeah, you'll never get it back that quick.
just saying. I mean,
Yeah.
we can do it, but you won't get that data back
By
that
next
fast.
meeting.
And honestly, Paul, I mean, without spending a ton of money, even if you could put it in the paper, I mean, your thing's gonna be this big. I'm gonna tell you right now, 90% of the people are never gonna read that. You would have to have a ad. And then you're talking a few hundred bucks to even think about it.
Full page, $1,000 or something.
Well, yeah,
like that.
well, I'm talking this big is even, you know, a few hundred versus a full page is way up there, so. So then the other would be the actual schedule of what's proposed too.
So we want to look at bringing this back next meeting then?
Absolutely, because if we're gonna let it go longer than that, and if somebody's gonna vote yes in a month and a half, and you're gonna shut it down then, and,
3 weeks later.
so I would say,
Keep in mind, though, whatever we do, if it's something good enough, I mean, we should consider doing it year-round. If it's something, the late day's working really good for everybody, I mean,
I would say the
you
proposal
know,
would
it's something to
be,
think about.
proposal should say to end after Labor Day.
Labor Day.
Reassessed after.
Yeah.
Right, so, well, they need, if it gets approved, it stops after Labor Day, and then it's brought back to the board for further discussion, if it's warranted at that point. Honestly, after Labor Day, I think we should have regular Friday hours, in my opinion, but I do think we should allow staggered hours, so somebody can stay that one night a week in at least one person per department to keep the extended hours for services.
I can tell you right now, people want that extended day.
And you could, again, you could say, hey, you know, work with your department. If you got 3, 4 people, say, okay, you're late, you guys go home and schedule it. And then Friday, if they work late, they get that extra time on Friday.
So how are we gonna track people walking in, just check or something, or I mean, with, are we gonna,
Get one of those things.
Every department will have to keep track of their own,
okay, but
except
manually?
mine that everybody stops at.
Yeah, everybody that walks in, oh, there's one.
I mean, like, you know, Trudy, your department, I would say probably as simple as if you had a log sheet just taped to the counter temporarily, and if you handle it, put a check mark. Nancy handles it, put a check mark. Whoever handles it, just check it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem doing that, I was just joking, because everybody
No, I
stops
know.
at my counter
Well, I'm
and
just
asks.
saying, it.
Now, is that
What the-
considered a stop?
That's where to go.
Yeah, that's probably the simplest way.
Okay, so you wanna go over it one more time, make sure we're clear with what we're doing, going, are we
We're
good?
gonna do, check the phone logs, Fridays only, ticker, walk-ins,
Fridays
Fridays
and
only.
Mondays. Right, they said Fridays and Mondays.
No, wait, ticker list for walk-ins on Fridays, energy bills Fridays, alternative evening day, compare it to Mondays.
Okay. Okay,
See, I have it,
So what she said.
and bring
you-
it back to the next meeting.
You just wanted the other way. And then just, we'll put it, Trudy just put it, we'll just put it in this schedule so we know exactly what day we're talking to.
okay,
Perfect.
all right, moving forward, comments from the public.
No, library thing.
Library.
Oh, 8D, sorry, library,
Me?
sure.
You? What, me? Okay. Well, I was looking over I'm glad we do this now, put in the current applications on file. The one from Toni Morrin came in a year ago, 2018, and she checked 8 different committees. We've had need on committees over and over and over. I don't know why she's just appearing now. And then Wendy Steinman is a longtime resident of Bedford. She's a teacher in the Bedford Public Schools. She, just since it was put out at a previous meeting, she has turned in this application. I just believe that she is a better candidate at this time, more current than someone who turned in their application a year ago and doesn't seem to have a vision for the library. She did check the library board, but it's not a vision because she's willing to be on Board of Review, Board of Zoning Appeals, Housing Commission, Cablevision.
She's here if you'd like to hear from her.
Well, no, I'm not, this isn't a personal thing.
Oh, I know, I'm just saying, if you're saying that you're not sure if she's into the library, she could come up and ask her if you want.
Well, that's not part of this discussion. This isn't to have public comment, it's to have a discussion of the board on, and I'm only giving you my opinion. Is that all right?
Sure.
Thank you, appreciate that. Wendy is, like I said, she is a early childhood. She's perfect, I think, for being able to offer suggestions to the library to keep the building up to date. I'm not saying Toni Morrin isn't. I'm saying that she has an interest in other areas where we might be able to use her. My understanding is the Cablevision Committee needs an appointee as well. Am I wrong about that? Or weren't you listening, Mr. Peroni?
I was being asked a question, but
That's
I
what
was
I thought.
listening. I was listening.
I remember hearing that from your teachers,
That is true.
that you were
I mean,
easily
we
distracted.
went through these lists. I did get, the only one I did get late was Ms. Steinman's. Okay,
What
but
do you mean late?
well, I didn't get it till Thursday morning.
When was it supposed to be
It
in?
got brought into me Thursday morning. I said,
No date.
huh?
She asked when was it supposed to be turned in. I said there was no deadline.
Yeah, what's?
But I'm
that's what I
saying,
mean.
we had already put it on the agenda for those two to be appointed, which are both out there. And I said, hey, Wendy's on here too. That was Thursday morning before the agenda was sent out.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, how can you blame Wendy when there was?
No, I'm
no
not
deadline?
blaming Wendy. I think Wendy'd be a great candidate.
Okay.
But I also said, we'll keep her in mind for boards in the future. I think she'd be great. But I think too, we have two fresh faces here that want to get involved in the community. They're here tonight. I think their applications are great,
But,
so I mean,
but what's wrong with putting her on the Cablevision Committee? She still would be involved in we need people on the Cablevision Committee, or what, it's not called that, but it's still on the.
Communications Committee.
But it's still listed on here as such, so.
Yeah.
What's wrong with putting her on that and then also utilizing Wendy? Wendy didn't sign up for the Communication Committee, she only signed up for the library.
I would take either one of them.
do you want to be on a
Wendy here?
communications committee?
That tells you this is old
That's
too.
what I
because
Okay,
there's no
so-
longer listed.
I will take her.
I know.
Yep.
Okay, so Wendy would be she
Now,
was the one I was
what
gonna.
about the other ones?
No, the next one I was gonna put on the agenda was Wendy.
Well,
So I'm
Crony, I'll jump in. One of my first thoughts too, and again, no disrespect or anything about any other applicants, but one of the first things I thought about, what is a library really, what is the tool? That is a huge tool for education. And I think it's a nice, broad communication between the school system and the library, so they can keep in tune with what's going on between the two. And I know they communicate already, but I think Wendy would be a real good choice there as well.
She would be, but the big thing with the library thing right now is the millage money that's going on. We need some more courses on it, we need people doing study, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. So that was the ticket and what we were looking at. I mean, we have the communication with the school, but, I mean, it would be good to add that, but my whole point is this millage money is a big deal, and we need to make sure we have people on there that are, have the time and want to be able to focus some energy and, and we have, so I'm fine with that. If she's fine with communication, I think we put Wendy on library and, the other gentleman, so.
Can we vote for communications before I lose her? Okay.
Okay, let's get going with some motions here. Come on, Nancy.
I make a motion to put Toni Morrin on the Communications Committee effective immediately.
Second.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0.
Do you have
Okay, you're on
term
your own.
ending? Do you need a
Next
term
motion,
for that?
Nancy,
What?
for the Library Advisory Board, the 2 members, Wendy and me.
Oh, I'm being appointed now, all right.
No, you're,
I move that we
If you want.
appoint Aaron Adler and Wendy Steinman to the Library Advisory Board for a partial term ending 12/31/19.
Support.
motion supported by Mr. Montry. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Thank you for your willingness to serve. We appreciate new people getting involved. We really do. So, thank you. Okay, now it's comments from the public. Comments limited to 5 minutes. Come on up.
Good evening again, Logan Tisdale, 1308 Brandywine Street. The Uniform Monday Holiday Act, enacted June 28, 1968, is an act of Congress that amended the federal holiday provisions of the U.S. Code to establish observance of certain holidays on Mondays. It took effect January 1st, 1971. Some of you weren't even born then. Nobody ever called me and asked me what I thought about the post office being closed on Monday, or Social Security being closed on Monday, or any other federal building being closed on Monday. So, but they enacted that, and that certainly helped the federal employees, because that gave them about 5 or 6 holidays where they had a 3-day weekend. And certainly some of the states adopted that also. I think you people put an awful lot of discussion into something that, you know, you need to figure out what days you want to be open, and that's it. I'm retired, so it doesn't make a difference what days you're open. I'm going to get here no matter what. And even when I was working, you know, I made adjustments in my schedule. If I had to get my license plates and stuff, and they were open on Wednesday or Thursday night, I went over there then. Or if I could go earlier, I did that. Or I took an hour off from work and did that. You can't make everything rocket science in this township. It's like you're never going to make everybody happy all the time. You haven't made me happy when it comes to the sheriff's department. I come here for 2 years. So the bottom line is I'm just one person, but everybody's got an opinion. And if you're worried about public opinion and making decisions and stuff, you're going to be here all day long. What does it serve the best for the people? You know, the township people that work here, we have to consider them too. It's not for the whole year. It's only for maybe 10 or 11 weeks in the summertime. It's not rocket science where you can take a few hours off here. It's not taken away from the functioning of the township. When they close the offices somewhere at the state police post at 4 o'clock, they close the offices there. I don't see anybody complaining about that. They used to be open 24/7. People, they go to state police post Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, it's closed. I called at 4:01, it was closed. You know, that's just the way life is and stuff. Sometimes you just have to make decisions based on making a decision. And if you're trying to please everybody in the township, you're going to be here for a long time, and you'll never get anything accomplished if that's the case. You got to do what's best for people. I don't see how it's going to affect the township by being closed for 4 hours on a Friday for maybe 10 weeks out of the year. If I can't adjust my day and say, you know, for the 4.5 days that you are open, and the people that are taking a half-hour lunch rather than an hour lunch, which to me is even better, that means you got more people working, more people answering the phones. You're not serving 30,000 people because none of the kids are coming in here, they're all in school. And so the bottom line is that you're serving a few number of people. So who is it going to really affect? My guess is it's not going to be as many people as you think. And if you're getting 600 or 500 responses saying, you know, that's a good idea, you know, you're going to have to make a decision sometime. I tell you, I thought I was going to need a haircut after I hear this discussion. You spend more time talking about things there that you think is going to affect you from a political standpoint than you do about things that cost us money. It's not costing me any more money if you're off on a Friday and stuff. You give the people some time off, it's good for them. You go out there on 23, drive 23 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, see how many cars are on 23 going home. Most people are leaving work at noontime. You can't hardly get on golf courses sometimes at 5 o'clock. So if you're worried about public opinions, start making a decision based on sitting down together as a unit and make a decision based on that. Stop worrying about everybody in the whole township here. You're not going to please everybody. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public?
Wayne Mosher, 7502 Wilford Drive in Temperance, Michigan. I appreciate your comments, Greg, and I appreciate your comments, Nancy. The people in the township here are
Hey,
here to...
Sir, please address the board, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So I can't look around. That's my twitch. But anyway, people in the township, you're here to serve them. And we're not there to serve 25 individuals that like to have a half day on Friday. In your comments, you're saying you're going to be open Monday till 6 o'clock. I don't think that's good enough. I think you need to have this building open till 7 o'clock. The reason why is we're not all live in the area where we all can be here at that time. Why should I lose pay because I have to leave work early to come to the township? I already pay enough in taxes. So I don't have to, lose my income in order to come to something that you're supposed to provide me. I think when this gentleman said, you're not going to please everybody, that is correct. But when these people asked for the job here at the township, did they say, hey, I'll take a job if I can get out at 1 o'clock on Friday? No, they didn't. They signed up to have an income to serve the people and have an income for their family. Hey, I'm sorry that people do make adjustments in their life so they can be on the golf course by noon, driving up 23 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but that's also what they call vacation time or personal time. And I just don't understand this. Why do you want people to work less? If you're telling me they don't have enough foot traffic in here on Friday, what's it like Monday through Thursday? I mean, do you guys have too many people employed here? I mean, that's what my biggest thought is. How many people are standing around doing nothing Monday through Thursday? Like Nancy said, cross-train on Friday. I read today that the assessments is so far behind, it's unreal. Train them to assess. I love your comments. I'd vote for you all day long. But the thing of it is, you guys got to start worrying about 25 individuals. There's 31,000 plus people here in this township. You're all supposed to be here working for, including the 25 individuals. So that's my comment. I'm really, it upset me reading your comment today on Facebook how, hey, these guys want a half day off on Friday. Take a half-day vacation. That's what I had to do. I had to take a half-day personal time. That's what I had to do. I didn't go to Ford Motor Company and say, hey, I only want to work till noon. I want to be off on noon Friday. See you later. It didn't work that way. So I don't care what Dundee does. I don't care what Blissfield does. I don't care what Monroe County does. This is Bedford, and this is who you serve, and this is what you need to do. Don't make adjustments to please 25 individuals. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public?
Dale Track, 2842 Sanibel Lane. My points earlier about the data points is you have to be able to substantiate your claims so it doesn't look so arbitrary. And the optics of this is, let's cut out early. And that's what I'm having trouble with. Unless you have clear data points, you can't make a clear decision. You have to have your comparison Monday through Friday. Because you might be able to go shorter, you might have to go longer. If you don't know how much service that you're actually doing, there needs to be some evaluation at some point. And that leads into back what happened in 2009. There's 2 board members here that had to struggle with some tough decisions back then. And you need to have a contingency plan of who's valuable. Every employee, I'm sure, is valuable. But you have to be prepared. If the market collapses out here again tomorrow, are you going to be prepared? Is the budget going to be ready? Are you going to be prepared? And that's the idea behind the data points. It will help you make your decisions. It will help you decide who are my valuable employees, and you'll be prepared for that situation. It's not going to be, well, you know, hey, that person over here or that person over here, I don't know. You just need to be prepared. So, and another point is the police millage is going to expire through the winter of 2019. Is there going to be a ballot measure for a police millage going on this fall? It was voted on in August of 2012, and it's supposed to expire, like I said, through the winter of 2019. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public? Seeing none, thank you for your comments. Okay, comments from board members. Ms. Tinneberry?
Just comment to Wayne, you're gonna have to run for my position and I'll vote for you. How's that? I just have one question of the board, and that is, why do we need 3 police cars? I heard that mentioned in the,
You want me to answer it now?
well, you can answer it when you get there, I guess. It's fine. Okay, that's my question.
I'll answer it now. If you wouldn't have left the budget, you would know.
Yeah, well.
But we had,
This is where you ask the questions, in front of the
Okay.
public, not at a budget
well, those are
workshop.
on Facebook
So,
Live too.
If you want to
We have-
argue that point, we can go there too.
We have 3 police cars that have roughly the same mileage. They're getting up to the 100,000 mark, and they will be way over at that point. So we're gonna replace the 3 2 ordinance and 1 of the assessing cars with the 3 police cars.
So is this, into the future, we're gonna replace 3 cars every time we replace cars? And how many drivers do we have for 3 cars? Yeah, okay.
I mean, they all have the same mileage. We bought them all 3 at the same time.
Yeah.
So the ordinance cars need to be replaced, and so does the assessing. They're getting old, you know, and
So am I.
they're getting a lot of maintenance work on them every year, so that was what was talked about at the budget meeting, so.
Well, I mean, I think the public deserves the right to know when you mention 3 police cars, so
Well,
I'm asking it.
It's
in
gonna come
public
before the
comment.
board before we, you know, order them. Okay, Mr. Clements?
I just wanted to circle back and make sure that the capital improvement resolution was in fact going to come back before us in the next couple of meetings. Other than that, I just wanted to say, I was gonna tell Ms. Morrin before she left that I appreciated her willingness to jump over and serve in another capacity, but since she's gone, I'll just say thank you to everybody that agrees to step up and serve. I think tonight when we saw the beautification committee, it's a really healthy reminder of how much gets done in this community outside the scope of pay. And I know it sounds hinky but quite honestly, that's a big piece of the charm of our community, is that people are willing to step up and do that kind of thing. Thank you.
Mr. Montry?
Yeah, I was gonna circle back to the capital improvement as well. Something I was thinking, are roads considered capital? Or what are roads considered? Because that is something that we do, quote-unquote, capital improvement upon and budget for. It's just something I just don't understand why that can't be like budgeted for like any other thing. And I kind of felt like it should have been brought up during those meetings if that was the case, so we would have known that at the time, because I don't think that was clearly communicated. One of the things I was thinking is, I think at times it seems maybe to the public like things are unorganized up here. And I think a lot of that just comes from the Open Meetings Act that kind of ties our hands as a board to be able to, you can't already be organized, had a meeting, talked about this so we can rack through these meetings. It's like, this is it. This is when we're talking about it. And I don't know, I think that gets missed maybe by the general public from time to time. And it's like, well, you guys have got nothing together. It's like, we're talking about it right now. This is when it's happening. I told you I'd give you an update on the library board. I got 2 new people. Actually, there is one thing I just found out today, like minutes before the meeting. I got an email that said, just with Voss, I don't know if it's Voss Electric, I have to find out, the pendant lights, that's still not done. And I looked at when I'd sent, which has been messed up multiple times. It makes me really consider like looking into doing business with them at all anymore, just from my limited experience. They seem like all of my experience is just beyond slipshod work and just lack of follow through on anything that they tell us. But we are working on, we do have a lot of, there's a lot of potential and a lot of work in the works. We have all of the HVAC companies coming to the next library advisory board to give presentations before we go on that. That's one of our bigger projects, is getting the controls, all of that done. But that's just a little update. I'll update more at the next meeting.
Okay. Mr. Steiner?
Just real quick, to add on the hours, after a comment was made about holidays, there's potential for 4th of July primarily. So if we're saying, if we're going to possibly consider between Memorial and Labor, 4th of July is the only thing that can come to mind that could happen to fall on a Monday. Where do you put those extra hours then for that particular week? Or so, pardon? But I'm not talking this one, but I'm talking if you went forward. It could happen on a Monday. So that's the only thing I'm thinking about there. You know, Mr. Montrab, I'm glad you made that comment, because I know, and not this particular subject, but other subjects, people before, they've said, oh, well, you know, had to be behind closed doors, you know, behind the doors agreements, and already got it all worked out. I'm glad you said that, because you're right. That does prove that this wasn't done behind closed doors. Nobody tried to say, okay, we're going to make this agreement, we're going to slap it before the board and put a rubber stamp on it. So I'm glad you brought that point up. The only other thing I want to say is more a public service announcement. Surprised Mr. Tisdale didn't mention it, being a former state policeman. Motorcycles are out when it's not raining. So watch out for motorcycles, bicyclists as well, and walkers. So you're starting to see a lot more people doing all of those things. So be very careful and slow down. I get alerts from, see what the fire department does. It's unbelievable what happens. And honestly, if you had 100 policemen, I guarantee you, you wouldn't have them in the right place at the right time every time that those things happen. People don't see the cops around. They're driving fast. They're doing stupid things. And, you know, just, we can't control everybody. We can put the word out, tell people these things. Slow down, pay attention, stop texting, quit getting distracted, etc. So all we can do is keep communicating and pushing forward. So again, it's more of a public service thing, but be careful out there. It's all of our lives on the line. That's all.
Mr. Francis?
A couple things. In response to Mr. Montar's questioning whether or not road improvements are capital improvements, I don't think they are, because we don't own the roads. It's maintenance. My view of what a capital improvement plan would be, or is a long-term look at what the capital needs are for equipment, for buildings, for whatever, 5, 10 years out. And you plan, when are we going to need that building? When are we going to need it in 10 years? Okay, how are we going to pay for that? That gives you the amount that you put in the budget, so that at the end of 10 years, you've got a good portion of that, or all of that. And that can't be done in a week. That's a major undertaking if it's done right, because we've got a lot of assets that we don't see here in the township. I don't mean that they're hidden. It's just that you don't think of them. We have a lot of equipment that we have equipment needs. We've been budgeting for that in the year that we need some big equipment, the budget goes way up. A capital improvement fund would maybe streamline that a little bit, but it's a plan ahead. It's not a fly-by-the-night thing, or you don't look at just next year. It's 5 to 10 years out.
Mhm.
And I think we all agree with that, that makes some sense, but that's hard to pull together quickly. But I think we need to do that.
Mhm.
Ms. Hirschberger?
Just want to let the residents know that Samaria Days is the Saturday, the 8th, starting at 9 a.m. Want to thank the members who joined the boards tonight. And let the residents also know that our newsletter will be coming out in the Bedford Press, this next edition. I think it went out today or tomorrow. Some people might have gotten it today, I'm not sure. And again, thank the Beautification Committee. The resolution we did is a small token of our appreciation. They've done more than we could thank them for. It would take years to thank them for everything they've done. And that's all.
Just to let you know, Logan, Dundee just made the hour change. They don't have, meetings to where they make a decision like that, this specific one. So I'm glad that we can't do that, because a lot would be done without public discussion. And, my point of this with Facebook and stuff, Facebook's tough. You get a lot of questions and people don't understand what you're really trying to say through Facebook. It's hard to read, I try to not comment. I made a lot of phone calls from Facebook just through Messenger today with people with some of the longer, lengthier comments, and tried to explain it that way. In looking at it, we really tried to help both the residents and the employees at the same time through this. That's why I put the poll out up there on Facebook. It wasn't to, bring the data back here and say, hey, this is what they said, let's do that. It just gave us some more discussion points. And I think roughly 700 people voting or saying something is, saying something. I don't recall putting a comment on there how these employees need a break, but, change of pace is nice once in a while. I remember as an iron worker for 17 years, I would look for the 410 job, or I would look for the overtime job or whatever. I like the change of pace. So, and it's, some are short, and having a Friday off at noon is nice, but also giving the residents something they're asking for is nice too. Staying open till 7 o'clock on a Monday or whatever, the residents are going to like that. And I think at the end of the day, rather than a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, year round, it'll be nice to see a change of pace. And I think they'll like it too, whatever it is. I just wanted to mention the Business Summit, June 21st at the Bedford Junior High School. Myself and Brian Calley will be speaking. He's the head of the Small Business Association in Michigan. He'll be our guest speaker. It starts at 11:30 and ends at 1. If you Google Eventbrite, 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 and then type in Bedford Business Summit, that's how you register for it. I wanted to say the TAP grant for Temperance Project is going out for bid earlier this week. And 2, we need to really start thinking hard about our maintenance building and the former Lions Den building with what we're going to do in the future. They're no longer in it. The building's going to quickly become an eyesore, at least that front end of it. So we need to do something about it, have a committee, figure out what we want to do. A lot of discussions been had already with legal and who owns it and, background information. We have a lot of that information. We've had a lot of discussion of turning it into a parking lot. Like Mr. Francis suggested, we need parking downtown and put the maintenance building behind Township Hall. We all know it needs a lot of work. That front end alone, when we were going to do an uplift, was $150,000. You could build a building out back for a couple hundred, a pre-engineered metal building. So I'm just saying we need to start having those discussions, before we start having the fixes coming, because they're coming. I believe they're just about finished up with the project out back from when the semi dumped a load of mulch into the building. They're just about done with that. And I want to thank Mr. Francis for sending out an email about the policy. We can get some dates for that moving along and have those meetings. And I really want to thank the ISD kids that have been working all year at the township. That relationship that we have with them, they just bring a lot of joy to Township Hall the 3 days a week that they come here. A lot of times they walk in and we have some good conversations, and they do a great job. And actually, I worked out a deal with a Goodwill to where they're going to hire 3 of them at Township Hall for the summer, and 2 of the same kids are going to be here this summer, and they'll be paid for it. So great relationships there, and maybe eventually down the road we could maybe have some employment out of it. So other than that, any comments, questions? Seeing none, we stand adjourned.